Have you ever felt you were stuck in your life, repeating the same mistakes, postponing changes, and waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives? The truth is that if nothing changes in your mind, nothing will change in your reality. But what if I tell you that there is a way to become mentally strong, resilient, and immune to adversity? A method tested for centuries by philosophers such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marco Aurelio, which can completely transform the way you face challenges, failures, and even success. In this video, you will find out how the principles of Stoicism can reprogram your mind, free you from fear and procrastination, and make you indestructible in the face of obstacles. No matter where you are now, what matters is how you decide to act from this moment. Are you ready to take control of your life? So let's start. How many times have you said to yourself, "When I have more time, I start," or "When everything is perfect, do I do it?" This thought seems harmless, but it is actually a trap that keeps you standing. Life does not expect, and this one never comes. There will always be challenges, distractions, and unforeseen events. Who really changes understands that the best time to act will never be ideal because it starts now, with what it has. The procrastination disguised as waiting for the right moment steals dreams and destroys potentials. Think of the great leaders, entrepreneurs, and thinkers of the story. How many of them started only when everything was perfect? None. They started with fear, uncertainty, and lack of resources, but took the first step. The action generates progress, while the wait generates regret. What are you postponing today that can change your life if you act now? Stoicism teaches us that time is the most precious resource we have. Marco Aurelio wrote, "Don't live as if you have 1,000 years ahead. Every day wasted waiting for the ideal moment is a day that never comes back." If you want to change your mind and your life, this is the first lesson: stop waiting. The right time is one when you decide to act. You can choose to change now or wait for life to force you to change, but one thing is certain: the change will happen. The problem is that when you leave the change in the hands of fate, it comes as a storm, not as a conscious choice. Many people only take attitudes when they face crises, losses, or failures. But is it necessary to wait for a shock to transform your life? Stoics teach that true wisdom is in anticipating problems, not just reacting to them. Imagine that your health is getting worse because you have bad habits. You can change now, discipline, or you can wait until a serious problem makes you change. The same goes for your finances, your relationships, and your personal growth. Seneca said that luck favors the prepared mind, or that those who anticipate and take the reins of their own life avoid many unnecessary suffering. Do you want to be someone who acts or someone who only reacts? The reality is simple: either you take control or will be controlled by circumstances. Conscious change is a privilege, while forced change is a burden. The decision is in your hands. The more you advance, the harder it gets. The question you need to ask yourself is, what am I waiting for? Because, in the end, those who do not change by choice changes by necessity. Stoic philosophers have left legacies who have resisted time because their lessons are not only theoretical, but practical and applicable to anyone who wants to change their way of thinking and acting. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marco Aurelio were not just thinkers, they were people who faced adversities, challenges, and difficulties like all of us. However, what differentiated them was the way they shaped their reactions. They taught us that true freedom is not in the absence of obstacles, but in the way we choose to react to them. Epictetus, for example, said that it is not the things that happen to us that affect us, but our opinion about them. The secret of mental transformation begins there. You may not control what happens, but you can control how you feel and how it reacts. Instead of impulsively reacting to situations, Stoic people teach us to pause, reflect, and act wisely. They propose that by focusing on what we can control and accept what we cannot, our mind becomes clearer and less overwhelmed by emotions. The daily practice of Stoicism involves simple habits that you can start applying today. First, start the day with a reflection on what is within your reach. Second, when facing a challenge, take a deep breath and take a mental pause to decide the best reaction. And lastly, at the end of the day, reflect on the choices you have done, evaluating what can improve. These small actions transformed the mind deeply, leading to a more balanced, serene, and true internal freedom. Seneca, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, has experienced extreme difficulties in her life. One of the most challenging moments was when he was exiled to Corsica Island, away from his family and friends, a sentence imposed by Emperor Nero. Imagine yourself in an isolated place, far from everything you know, without the amenities of everyday life. Many would have succumbed to despair, but Seneca did something extraordinary. He used this time to delve into his philosophical studies and strengthen his mind. Instead of focusing on suffering, he chose to focus on his internal response to the circumstances. Seneca's exile was not just a punishment, but an opportunity for reflection. He dedicated himself to studying Stoicism and, instead of lamenting his luck, turned his suffering into a source of personal growth. Throughout his life, Seneca has taught that adversity is a chance to show true inner strength. He saw exile as a chance to test himself, to test the Stoic principles he preached so much. He believed that the difficulty was a disguised opportunity for self-knowledge and the strengthening of virtue. Seneca teaches us that no matter how much we find ourselves, we always have the ability to choose our answer. Instead of complaining about what happens to us, we can look for ways to grow from it. Like him, you can turn even the most difficult adversities into tools for your personal improvement. True freedom for Stoic is not in the absence of problems, but in the way we deal with them. Each difficulty can be a valuable lesson if you choose to use it to strengthen yourself. Have you already caught yourself doing the same things every day, as if you were stuck in an endless cycle? It is like a scratched disc that repeats the same songs without variation, without evolution. This cycle is often composed of automatic habits and mental patterns we form throughout life. And most interesting is that, most of the time, we don't even realize how much we are repeating behaviors that lead us nowhere. The mind tends to seek the comfort zone, even if it means stagnating or backwards. The good news is that you have the power to stop this cycle. You just need to learn to do it consciously. Stoic philosophers knew that repetition of automatic behaviors could be harmful to personal growth. They believed that, to get out of this cycle, it was necessary to question the beliefs that lead us. Marco Aurelio, in his Meditations, reminds us that we are constantly exposed to distractions of the outside world, and that our mind, by nature, tends to deviate from what really matters. The key is to recognize these standards, distance from them, and establish new habits that really lead to evolution. Instead of living in automatic, we need to be aware of our choices, reflecting on them, so that we can create new mental routes. Change begins in consciousness. When you observe your thoughts and actions, you realize how many of them are automatic and are not aligned with your true goals. By stopping and reflecting on your choices, you can start changing small behaviors, creating new, more positive and productive mental routes. This process requires patience and discipline, but the good news is that the mind is flexible. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change with the repetition of new habits, shows us that we are never condemned to remain in the ancient cycle. With time and effort, you can reformulate your mind and, consequently, your life. The first step to true change is self-observation. Without her, it's like trying to drive a car without looking at the road. If you really want to grow, you need to understand the patterns you are repeating, both in your actions and your emotions. Self-observation is not something that comes naturally. It requires constant attention to what you think, feel, and do. But it is this process of looking inside that allows you to identify what is working and what needs to be adjusted. Only when you notice a negative pattern can start breaking it and replacing it with something healthier and more effective. Epictetus teaches us that true freedom begins when we free from the automatic habits that dominate our lives. If you are constantly procrastinating, impulsively reacting to situations, or being carried away by emotions, it is time to stop and reflect. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is this behavior trying to protect me from? Often these habits are born of fears or insecurities that we have accumulated over the years. When we identify these roots, we can start working on them and gradually replace automatic reactions with more conscious and constructive answers. The good news is that once you identify a negative pattern, the power of change is in your hands. Stoicism teaches us that our life is a series of daily choices, and we can change these choices at any time. Replacing a habit is not easy, but it is possible. Start with small actions instead of procrastinating. Do a simple task early in the morning instead of reacting impulsively. Take a deep breath and think before you act. Each little victory in the self-observation process brings great results over time, and soon you will realize that your mind and behaviors begin to align with what you really want to achieve. Have you ever stopped to think about what you really are preventing you from moving forward? Often the biggest obstacle is not out there, but within ourselves in limiting beliefs, fear of failure, and habits that bind us. These invisible currents make us believe that we are not capable, that the moment is not right, or that the risk is too big. But the truth is that the only thing that is really holding on us is ourselves. The first step to move forward is to understand that these barriers are built by our own mind, and that with effort and dedication we can break them. Limiting beliefs are those ideas that we often inherit from society, family, or even past experiences. They become so rooted in our mind that we begin to accept them as absolute truths. Epicteto teaches us that it is not the things that happen to us that affect us, but the way we see them. That is, if we believe that we are not good enough, or that change is impossible, it becomes our reality. But if we change our vision, we begin to transform this reality. The power of choice is always in our hands, and it is up to us to challenge the beliefs that limit us. Fears, in turn, are like shadows. They seem great and threatening, but often when faced, they are much smaller than we imagined. The fear of failing, being rejected, or losing control often paralyzes us. The good news is that by adopting a Stoic mindset, we can learn to deal with these fears more rationally. Marco Aurelio, for example, said that we should not fear what we cannot control. The secret is to take the first step no matter the size of fear. Every small step we take toward the unknown is a victory over the invisible currents trying to keep us in the same place. Marco Aurelio, the emperor philosopher, is a classic example of how to overcome internal obstacles to live a life more aligned with Stoic principles. Even though he was at the height of power, he faced deep personal challenges, including family losses, betrayals, and political struggles. What made him different is that he did not allow these challenges to control his emotions. Instead, he used every difficulty as an opportunity for self-discovery and growth. He believed that the real strength was to maintain serenity, even when everything around was chaotic. Marco Aurelio teaches us that the biggest obstacles are not external, but inmates in the thought, emotions, and reactions. Irene Bonin, a woman who has also faced great adversities in her life, is another example inspiring overcoming. Created in an environment of financial and emotional difficulties, she found herself in several challenging situations. But, like Marco Aurelio, she chose not to surrender. She used adversities as a school of life, focusing on reinventing herself and strengthening her mind. Irene found that the power of change was in his mind, and that the way he reacted to difficulties was what really determined his life. Like her, many of us go through obstacles that may seem impossible to overcome, but the key is not in allowing these obstacles to define who we are. Both Marco Aurelio and Irene Bonin show us that the biggest challenge is not the situation itself, but the way we choose to deal with it. They were not victims of the circumstances, but they took the reins of their own lives, applying the philosophy of mental discipline and resilience. When we face difficulties, we need to remember that we have the ability to choose our answer. What really matters is not what happens to us, but as we react to it. The example of these two shows that, Regardless of the size of the obstacle, internal transformation is the key to a life of truly freedom and power. Neuroplasticity is one of the most fascinating discoveries of modern science, and at the same time, one of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal. Simply put, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize, form new connections, and even replace areas damaged with new functions. This means that our mind is not a fixed structure, but something that can be molded and refurbished over time as we repeat new behaviors, thoughts, and habits. This idea is in total harmony with Stoic thinking, which teaches us that, by changing our mindset, we can profoundly alter our lives. The concept of neuroplasticity gives us a sense of renewed power. If our mind can be shaped, then our actions can also be transformed. This allows us to reprogram our thinking patterns, replacing limiting beliefs with strengthening beliefs. For example, if you have always been afraid of public speaking, continuous and conscious practice can reshape the way your brain reacts to this situation, making it more natural and less frightening. Like Stoics, you can create new thought habits that align your mind with your goals and values, allowing change to become an organic part of your life. The key to taking advantage of neuroplasticity is repetition and consistency. Just as a muscle needs to be exercised to strengthen itself, the mind needs regular exercises to develop new thinking patterns. By adopting daily practices of reflection, meditation, or even affirmative, you begin to create new neural paths that replace the old mental habits. Over time, these new ways of thinking become as automatic as old standards, but with the benefit of being healthier, productive, and aligned with their goals. True transformation begins when you consciously decide to shape your mind to become the person you want to be. The journey to self-control begins with a simple but powerful principle: patience. In today's world, we are constantly being encouraged to seek immediate gratification, but true growth comes when we can dominate our impulses and adopt a slower and more reflective pace. Self-control does not mean to suppress our emotions or desires, but to learn to manage them in a way that they do not control our actions. With patience and practice, we can replace automatic behaviors with more thoughtful answers that lead us toward our goals more effectively. Simple but consistent exercises can be a great way to strengthen the mind and reformulate behaviors. For example, start the day with a 5-minute meditation to connect with yourself and better understand your thoughts and emotions. This moment of pause helps to train the mind to react more consciously throughout the day. Another useful exercise is that of mental pause. Whenever you feel an impulse to react impulsively, like angry, anxiety, or frustration, step back, breathe deeply, and ask yourself if this reaction is really aligned with your values and goals. This allows you to replace automatic reaction with a more conscious and balanced choice. Over time, these exercises help cultivate patience and self-control as you begin to see that the real change does not happen overnight. Each small step counts, and the actions that seem simple at first accumulate in great transformations. This is how discipline is built, through small daily victories that, added up, have a deep impact on the way you deal with life. In the end, self-control and patience are not just about controlling our impulses, but about allowing us to grow constantly and sustainably until we become the best version of ourselves. In a hyper-connected world, social networks play a central role in our lives, but it is essential to recognize the impact they can have on our minds. While social networks can be a powerful tool to connect with people, learn new things, and even promote our projects, they can also be a source of distraction, anxiety, and constant comparison. We spend so much time by feeding our minds with external information that we forget to protect our inner space. If we are not careful, social networks can invade our thoughts and distort our perception of reality, making us feel inappropriate or unmotivated. Stoic philosophers, such as Seneca, warn us about the danger of allowing the external world to dominate us. Seneca said that we should not be enslaved by external things. This applies directly to our daily information consumption. Each time you roll the news feed, you see something that arouses a negative emotion, if envy, frustration, or fear. You are, in a way, opening a gap for these feelings to settle in your mind. To protect our inner peace, we need to learn to filter what we consume and, most importantly, to set healthy limits to the time we have been immersed in the digital world. Protecting the mind means, in large part, taking responsibility for what we choose to pay attention. This does not mean rejecting social networks completely, but creating a more conscious relationship with them. You can start practicing digital detox, define specific times to access networks, and avoid getting involved in discussions or following profiles that cause negative feelings. Also, take time for activities that really nourish your mind, such as reading books that inspire personal growth, meditation practice, or even the simple act of spending time in silence. When you protect your mind, you create a space for it to focus on what really matters: your own well-being and your life goals. We all know that action is the key to any transformation. No matter how planned or dreamed of something, without action, nothing will happen. The world is full of people who have great ideas and goals, but what really separates those who achieve success from those who are just dreaming is the attitude. Positive thinking, motivation, and vision are fundamental, but they only become powerful when accompanied by consistent execution. For your life to really change, you need to stop waiting for the right time or perfect motivation. The right time is now, and motivation comes from their own action. Epictetus teaches us that true freedom and power are in action. It's no use being regretting or waiting for ideal conditions to act. If you want something, start. Even if the first step is small, the importance is in the movement. Action is what builds bridges between your desire and reality. We all face insecurities and doubts, but by acting, even with fear or uncertainty, you begin to see the results. The action creates momentum, and this momentum will boost you later and forward. Of course, action needs to be strategic. Just going out doing everything anyway can be counterproductive. But the most important thing is to start. Take the first step, even if it is small. For example, if your goal is to improve your health, don't wait until you start a perfect diet. Just get up and take a 15-minute walk. If you want to write a book, start with a page, not with the 30-chapter goal. Magic happens when you start, and with every small action, you build a solid path to what you want to achieve. Resilience is one of the most powerful qualities we can cultivate in our lives. The challenges are part of any journey, and no matter how much you get ready, they will come up. What really determines your success is the way you choose to react to these obstacles. People who become truly successful are not those who have never faced difficulties, but those who have learned to get up and move on when they fell. The secret is to see difficulties not as insurmountable walls, but as opportunities disguised as tests. In Stoic philosophy, adversity is seen as inevitable, but also as a chance to grow. Epictetus said, "It is not the things that happen to us that affect us, but the way we see them." That is, the challenges alone do not determine our destiny, but our attitude before them. If you adopt a mindset that every difficulty is a chance to learn, you will be on the right track to develop a resilience that will boost you even more. Resilience is not about avoiding pain, but about learning to deal with it constructively. Cultivating resilience involves practicing patience, perseverance, and acceptance. When difficulties arise, instead of letting yourself down, try to understand what you can learn from each situation. It is the famous concept of moving on, even when the path is difficult. Sometimes the greatest lesson comes when things do not come out as planned, and it is at this moment that true force of character is forged. So instead of resisting difficulties, open yourself to them. Face them as an opportunity to test their own ability to resist and grow. We live in a world where everything seems to be at our disposal in a snap of fingers. Instant gratification is something that is constantly offered to us, whether on online purchases, social networks, or even in quick services. However, when it comes to achieving lasting and significant results, the true key is in patience and discipline. Great achievements do not happen overnight. They are the product of small actions repeated daily, without haste, without seeking immediate results. Patience teaches us to trust in the process and understand that each step, however small, contributes to the whole. Discipline, in turn, is the basis that maintains these actions consistent. It is not about doing something only when it feels motivated, but to commit to the process, even on the days when motivation seems scarce. Marco Aurelio, who faced numerous difficulties in his life, said that the daily practice of virtues, even when no one was looking, was essential to staying firm in his principles. For him, the real strength was in persistence, without haste, and focusing on what could control, rather than consuming for the anxiety of wanting rapid results. Just like any skill we develop, patience and discipline need to be trained and cultivated. You can start small instead of requiring immediate results. Focus on gradual progress. If your goal is to write a book, for example, don't worry about finishing the chapter the next day. Just write every day, even if it's just a page. If you seek to improve your health, don't expect to lose 10 pounds in a week, but adopt healthy daily habits, such as a walk or a nutritious meal, and trust that the results will come over time. In the end, the true power of patience and discipline lies in confidence in the process, knowing that each small action counts to create major transformations. The tendency to live in the past or future is something we all face, but the real key to a full and significant life is to learn to live in the present. The past is gone and we cannot change what happened, and the future, though full of possibilities, is uncertain and unpredictable. When we spend our mental energy on what has happened or what is yet to come, we fail to realize the beauty and opportunities that are happening now. The gift is the only moment we really have, and that's where life happens. When we focus our attention on now, we can make the most of each experience, whether good or challenging, and use it for our growth. Stoic philosophers, such as Marco Aurelio, constantly emphasize the importance of living in the present. For him, life could only be fully appreciated when focused on the present time, without the distraction of what has gone through or what will still come. Marco Aurelio said you have power over your mind, not about external events. Realize this, and you will find the strength. When we understand that the present is the only moment we control, we can break free from anxiety and guilt, two of the greatest peace thieves that exist. By focusing on the action we can take now, not what we have done or what we will do, we are living in alignment with what really matters. To start living more in the present, the practice of full attention or mindfulness is a powerful tool. This involves being completely focused on the task you are doing, whether eating, walking, or talking to someone. By practicing this presence, you begin to realize what is happening around you and within you, creating a deeper connection with the moment. Also, by releasing the weight of the past and the anxiety for the future, you open yourself to a richer and more rewarding life experience, where your attention is focused on what is within your reach in the present. Remember, life happens now, and when living in the present, you are living the life that is really worth it. We often associate freedom with the idea of being able to do everything we want without restrictions or limitations. However, the true meaning of freedom is quite different. Freedom does not mean acting without limits, but having the ability to make conscious decisions based on our values and goals without being enslaved on momentary impulses. The real free is one who has self-control and chooses the direction he wants to go on in life, without being carried away by what is easier or the others expect from him. Freedom is not to be dominated by our desires or fears, but to be the master of our own mind and actions. Stoics, as an Epictetus, already talked about this true freedom. He said, "True freedom is to be free from our own passions." The Stoic concept of freedom is closely linked to self-control and the ability to choose our response to the circumstances of life. Instead of being enslaved by our emotions or external expectations, true freedom is to be able to make decisions that are aligned with our purpose and lead us to our best version. By controlling our reactions and choices, we have become free, for we are in charge of our lives, not in the taste of external winds. To live this true freedom, it is essential to practice self-control and constant reflection on the choices we make. A simple but powerful exercise is to start questioning your automatic and impulsive reactions. For example, when you feel angry or frustration, stop for a moment and ask yourself, is this reaction really useful, or I'm just responding automatically? Over time, this kind of reflection helps to cultivate a quieter and more balanced mind, capable of acting more wisdom and discernment. When we make conscious decisions based on our values and goals, we are really living in freedom. Uma das licos mais poderosas que podemos aprender é que somos os responsáveis pela nossa vida. Ninguém mais pode mudar o caso de nossa realidade. Muitas vezes, quemos na tentação de culpar os outros ou as circunstâncias pelos nossos fracassos e dificuldades. No entanto, a verdade é que a única pessoa que tem o poder de transformar a sua vida é você. Assumir a responsabilidade pela sua vida significa entender que suas escolhas e atos têm impacto direto no seu futuro. O poder de mudar está em suas mãos, e é isso que faz toda a diferença na jornada rumo aos seus objetivos. No pensamento estoico, a ideia de responsabilidade pessoal é central. Epicteto ensinava que não são as coisas que nos acontecem, mas como reagimos a elas que determina nossa vida. Isso significa que, independentemente das circunstâncias externas, a maneira como respondemos a elas define o nosso destino. Ninguém pode fazer isso por você. E você quem escolhe vai se levantar depois de uma queda. Se vai aprender com os erros ou vai permanecer na zona de conforto. O verdadeiro poder está em sua capacidade de se responsabilizar pelas suas escolhas e atos, sabendo que elas moldam a realidade que você viverá amanhã. Assumir a responsabilidade pela sua vida não significa que você não enfrentará dificuldades, mas sim que você tomará controle de sua reação e das atos que tomará diante delas. Se algo não está indo como você gostaria, em vez de culpar os outros, pergunte o que posso fazer para melhorar essa situação. Isso coloca você no comando de sua vida, e é a partir desse lugar de poder que você começa a construir o futuro que deseja. Lembre-se, a mudança começa dentro de você, e você tem todas as ferramentas necessárias para criar a vida que sempre sonhou. A responsabilidade está nas suas mãos, e com ela, o poder de transformar tudo ao seu redor. Agora que você explora cada desses princípios poderosos, é hora de refletir como você pode aplicar cada deles em sua vida. Está pronto para assumir a responsabilidade pela sua realidade e tomar as rédeas do seu futuro? Lembre-se de que a mudança começa de dentro, e você tem o poder de transformar sua mente e sua vida por meio do apoio, paciência, disciplina e resiliência. Não aspire pelo momento certo ou pela motivação perfeita, porque a verdadeira mudança acontece no agora, com pequenas atitudes consistentes. A jornada não será fácil, mas a recompensa de viver uma vida autêntica e cheia de propósito é algo que vale cada esforço. Se você quer mais conteúdos que vão te ajudar a se tornar indestrutível, inscreva-se no canal e ative as notificações para não perder nenhum dos próximos vídeos. Let's go together on this transformation journey.